Welcome to Raising Relationships, a podcast by the South Carolina Infant Mental Health Association. Here are your hosts, Amaris and Tiffany.
Welcome back, everybody. I don't know about you, but I hear the question, what is normal, come up a lot when talking about kids and development.
Right? It's one of the scariest things, the scariest words for a parent, normal. What does it look like? You know, who defines normal? Who defines normal behavior? Who decides normal activity, right? What does normal look like in the eyes of a parent?
Exactly. Being a parent myself, my two children who have come from me are so different from one to another that their normal is different from each other. It really is a case-by-case basis.
Absolutely. It's so individualized. However, sometimes in society, they'll make you think there's these markers for what normal should look like. And so we're going to be talking about that today. So let's paint a picture here. Let's go back to Shanti and Micah's story just for a minute.
So I would take him to his pediatrician and I would mention this to her about him crying constantly and just doing that. And she would say, oh, he's all boy. It's okay. You know, he'll grow out of it. Oh, it's too early to get tested. Don't worry about it. But I worried about it because I was dealing with the daycare telling me that something wasn't right. And I didn't know what it was.
What Shanti is describing there is something that almost every parent does. They take their children to see the pediatrician to help them figure out what is normal. Is this normal?
But listen to what Shanti says happened with her and Micah over time.
So the older he got, it was about 1. Michael was walking, still doing the same thing, throwing these real temper tantrums where he was, throwing himself on the floor. I was told, he's just going through that terrible twos. He's just starting it early. Oh, just ignore him when he's on the ground. Don't pay no attention to it. Oh, just be firm with him. And this is from the pediatricians. This is from the daycare workers, from my mom, outside advice, everything. But somewhere in me, I felt like, this is not right. He shouldn't be doing the things that he's doing.
Amaris, what I'm hearing Shanti tell us is what we all say all the time. The parent is the one who knows the child best. The parents are the experts of their children.
The parents are the experts. And sometimes it's hard as a parent to trust their expertise, to know that I really know what's happening for my child, what's happening inside and to my child, that I can trust my own expertise.
Absolutely. But primary caregivers are the ultimate observers. They watch them daily. They notice the small changes that a professional might not be aware of. So parents and primary caregivers need to go into appointments open-minded, but also hold in mind that they ultimately hold the key to what their child needs to thrive.
Absolutely. And so we see this. Shanti even switched pediatricians to see if she could get a more firm grasp on how to help Micah.
I switched pediatricians to get a second opinion. And they all kept saying, he's all boy. He's all boy. It's going to be all right. And they say, you shouldn't worry, Mama. You're putting too much stress on yourself. I just wanted somebody to tell me what I could do to help my son.
Which brings us to this episode's helper. We sat down to chat with Dr. James Collins and Dr. Karen Ratliff-Schaub. Both are from Prisma Healthcare System in South Carolina.
And we dig into the new standards for normative development and how to validate the feelings of caregivers in these situations. Today we have Dr. James Collins and Dr. Karen Ratliff-Schaub, developmental pediatricians from the Prisma Healthcare System here in the upstate of South Carolina. Dr. Collins is currently here in Greenville, South Carolina, completing his fellowship in developmental behavioral pediatrics. Welcome, Dr. Collins.
Thank you so much.
We also want to welcome Dr. Karen Ratliff-Schaub. She moved to South Carolina about 5 years ago and also works alongside Dr. Collins at Prisma Health for developmental pediatricians. We're so happy to have you both with us today.
Thank you. We appreciate being here.
We would love to know a little bit more about what led you to the work of developmental pediatrics, and also what is it that developmental pediatricians do that's different from a typical pediatrician? We'd just love to hear about that.
Yeah, so as the title hints, we monitor the development of children. Parents take their child to their primary care physician for their well-child checks. At those visits, the physician will evaluate developmental milestones with various screens. If the child is noted to have delays in any domain of development, including speech, language, motor, or social, then they kind of refer them to us. We also specialize in the evaluation and treatment of ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, and other various developmental issues. For me, the reason why I chose developmental pediatrics is kind of the diversity of patients. And I noticed that there was a lack of access of care for families with children who have developmental disabilities or learning difficulties.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And for me, I've had a lot more experience in the field. When I first learned about developmental pediatrics, I was a resident. It was a brand new field. And I was intrigued by it.
Well, we all love the littles. I think we can all agree on that.
Yes.
Absolutely. And when we speak of the littles, you mentioned, you were intrigued, and the word that came to my mind was curiosity. Curiosity is such a huge theme in the work that we do as infant and early childhood mental health specialists or professionals. That's a big piece of this, curiosity. And so in this world, in addition to that curious stance, always wondering about what's happening beneath the surface, another huge theme of infant and early childhood mental health is relationships. Right? How important are relationships for the social and the emotional development of the littles? And so when we talk about that, how do you see development, specifically social and emotional development? How do you see that importance of relationships playing out in that work?
So we see a lot of connections with between development and relationships. That the child is definitely a part of a family unit, and you can definitely see the impact of the family on all aspects of development, but especially social and emotional. You can also
Absolutely.
see an interplay between different aspects of development. So, children who are really struggling with communication are also probably going to struggle in social and emotional development because they get frustrated, but they can't communicate it. They can't say and do the things that they would like to because of the communication or other delays, fine motor, gross motor. So we see a real interplay of all that. And that's why it's important to watch for that. You can also see a lot of things by watching children with their families and other caregivers. It's a beautiful dance when it's working. I mean, it's just so wonderful to watch that and that give and take. And you realize how much families really support children, and they support that curiosity. They give them the space and safe places to be curious and explore their world without getting hurt, because that's important, but without restricting that too. So it is that balance and that dance. And, what we try as developmental pediatricians is to help families get that going right, but also to know what to do when something's not quite working the way it should.
Wow. So I just want to highlight something you said. It sounds to me like when you're talking about those developmental domains, the social, emotional, the cognitive, motor, language, what am I missing? I'm missing something. Self-help or daily life skills. Thank you very much. When you're talking about those, it sounds like they're not siloed, that they're actually quite interactive with one another.
Yeah, absolutely. They're all interconnected. And you have to kind of look at all of that if one area is not going the way it should.
A lot of times when parents and caregivers are having these concerns, what we recognize in the work that we do and some of the work that you all have seen within Help Me Grow, even, we recognize that because there's such this specialty that you do, there can a lot of times be these long wait lists that families are having to wait, one, to even have the bravery and courage to talk to their pediatrician about their concerns. And once they've been referred to you, it takes a while for them to have those concerns addressed. And so I wonder, I can remember being there. Let me say that. I can remember as a mom having these concerns and being on this wait list and feeling hopeless, feeling like I needed answers because I needed to know what to do. And so what recommendations would you have for a mom like me, a mom that's listening out here today, when they are, or a caregiver that is listening as they're waiting to be seen?
Sure. The wait lists are a big problem in our field. We're not alone here in Greenville and South Carolina. I mean, everybody I talk to, every place I've been, it's a problem. It was part of the reason that you wanted to get into the field. So we recognize that. That does not make it right. So one of the things that, we're really trying to do is to help families find some assistance while they're waiting, or sometimes even instead of coming to see us, because sometimes being connected to things like BabyNet or Help Me Grow will take care of the issue. So we're really trying to get the word out that, that it doesn't have to be just a referral and you're just stuck here waiting for a long time. Using some of the other resources that are out there in the community, because kids don't need to have a specific diagnosis to get services from BabyNet. Help Me Grow can help them get do developmental screening, can help them get linked with some behavior help for parents, Child Find through the school district. None of that needs a specific diagnosis.
And it's so encouraging to hear about the accessibility of these multiple resources, right? Like Help Me Grow. And I know we'll lean into Shanti's story later, but that was the way Shanti was connected, was through Help Me Grow, and how she was able to find the resources that she described as life-changing for her and Micah. And so I'm happy to hear about the accessibility of all these partners you have in the state. Tiffany, I see you leaning in. What were you thinking?
I am thinking of Shanti. I'm thinking of her story, and she talks a lot about how she felt her concerns were dismissed by professionals over and over and over again, right? And this wasn't just one type of professional. This was all kinds of people. And I also think on the opposite side of the spectrum, when a child might be displaying some sort of challenging behavior in an early learning setting, sometimes we'll see incorrect self-diagnosis, where the teacher will say things like, he has ADHD, you should go see someone and get him on medication, when the child hasn't even been evaluated. Right. So I'm just wondering, first of all, about being dismissed by the professionals and basically getting back, you've got this, mama. You've got this. What comes to mind professionally when you hear that?
So, I mean, I think when we're speaking specifically about being dismissed, it ties back into one of the main reasons I wanted to do developmental pediatrics. So it's the time with the patients that you have. General pediatricians, depending on where they're employed, are often allotted only 15 minutes for a well child check, and maybe a maximum of 30 minutes for a sick visit.
So true.
In developmental peds, we are typically allowed up to an hour and 15 minutes for new patients, and then 45 minutes for our follow-up visits. So it's not an uncommon thing for when I finish the visit, the parents are saying, thank you, I finally feel like I've been heard. And then also near the beginning, a lot of times when I say, how are you today? The parents just start listing off all the concerns as fast as they can because they don't realize that we have the time. And I go, whoa, calm down. We have plenty of time today. And so you can almost sense a sense of relief from them. And so that's one of the reasons I chose developmental, is we're just allowed more time with our patients to really figure out the root cause of the issue.
A lot of this is that stance of curiosity, really wondering about the environment. What is happening in the environment and what is happening in the relationship, so that we're not always so quick to, like you said, always have this formal diagnosis or this formal treatment, but really working on wondering about what's happening around that child, and how can we support the caregivers in that child's life where we're able to, again, bolster that relationship, because maybe that's the game changer. So I love the consideration of really being curious about what's happening for that child and their family is so important.
And also how stress can really look like some of these symptoms. Trauma can look like some of these symptoms. So children who are experiencing different stressful events could very much present with hyperactivity. Or if we're talking about autism spectrum disorder, they could present with some of the symptoms that you look for as a developmental pediatrician, correct?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. And the caregiving environment, other caregiving environments matter too. I've seen 2 kids in follow-up just this week who the previous classroom setting or daycare, it was a disaster. And this, we were looking at, do we need to treat for ADHD? And now they're in a different setting and it's night and day. They're not having those issues. There's no concern. Or I shouldn't say there's no concern. They're functioning quite well, and there's not a concern that we need to do any treatment. So it's really amazing how goodness of fit in the environment, both at home and in caregiving situations, is so key.
Thank you for highlighting that. We've talked a lot about expulsion in those childcare environments, right? And so thank you for highlighting the importance again of those childcare providers' relationship with a child and how that can make the difference. And I know you guys have had the opportunity to listen to Shanti's story and Micah's story. And we saw that happen in Micah's story. I get chills every time I think about Micah's story about how the caregiving environment really made a difference for him. And we see him now thriving in his classroom. So I want to ask this question, then we'll back up a little bit. But can you share with us, if Shanti was in your office with some of the concerns that she presented with, and Micah was in front of you, what recommendations would you have for Shanti regarding Micah?
For him, it didn't sound like he was having major developmental delays, but some kids, their behavior is kind of the first tip of what you see is, and there's a lot of other delays that people haven't been able to kind of recognize because all they're seeing is a lot of really difficult behavior. Young kids don't have a great way oftentimes of communicating what they're feeling. And so with behavior, and sometimes that's, I'm confused. I don't really know what you're asking me to do. So I'm certainly not going to do it. And I'm not going to make it easy for you. I'm going to fuss because I'm confused about it.
So I always tell a lot of my moms and dads that I see in clinic that, if the maternal or paternal red flag goes up, that they have a concern for their kid, don't ignore it. So just keep trying until someone is listening to you. And so that's one of the things, her perseverance and being able to go, because when people follow the pediatrician, sometimes they don't click well. And so don't give up. Try again until you're heard. And so that was one of the things that I just really was extremely motivational about her story.
Yeah. And likewise, also with the early childhood caregiving environments, as a mom, my kids are adults now, but I remember how hard it was to change daycare situations, to say, this is not working. And it's really tough because you don't know. You're like, am I reading this wrong? Is this the right thing to do? And this one didn't work. How do I know the next one's going to work? I mean, it takes a lot of courage to do that and a lot of work to find the right environment. So
it does.
Trying to find the right environment can be really tough. And so I think that's another piece that we kind of encourage families to look at. If this doesn't seem like it's a good fit, then look for some other options and being okay with saying, this is just not the right one. So
the right fit is out there somewhere.
Thank you for everything you brought into this space and the hope that I know you gave some caregiver, some parent who is struggling out there today, trying to figure out what to do. I feel like you've left them with hope. And for that, I'm grateful. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
So we'll leave this space holding hope too. Thanks a lot.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
One quick update on this topic related to Shanti and Micah. They did end up having success, and it was because they connected to Katie, a care coordinator, through Help Me Grow, a schema program. Help Me Grow organizes existing resources into a coordinated system that meets the needs of young children and families. In order to support healthy development of children, they provide them opportunities for success to help them reach their full potential.
I went to a new pediatrician, and when I went to her and I explained to her, this is what's happening to him at 3 and 4 years of age. I said, this has been going on since he was 10 months old. I need help. So what she did was she opened up a new world for me and Micah, and that was the Help Me Grow program. And that program right there, I talked to this wonderful lady. Her name was Miss Katie. And she didn't just talk to me and brush me off. She actually said, I understand. And that was the first time that I heard somebody say, I understand. And then she referred me to South Carolina Mental Health, for infant mental health. And from there, she told me about the Circle of Security. And Miss Katie doesn't know what she did for me. She really doesn't. I text her every now and then to tell her about Micah and to tell her about how he's doing.
In the next episode of Raising Relationships, we'll explore the Circle of Security Shanti just mentioned with Dr. Mackenzie Soniak about how this innovative approach to parenting and caregiving is helpful to families and children.
Don't forget to share the show and review it on Apple Podcasts. Raising Relationships is made possible by South Carolina Infant Mental Health Association.
More information about SCIVMA and other resources can be found in the show's notes. Thanks for listening.
This podcast is produced for the South Carolina Infant Mental Health Association by Story Studio Network.